Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels. This summer, we are hosting our Romantasy Edition of a book club while we prepare for our 15-part literary analysis of Sarah J. Maas's A House of Sky and Breath. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy, and each week we'll discuss one book from our Summer Book Club roster. By using our literary background, we'll provide our first blush analysis of each book, as well as discuss listener thoughts.
This week, we are discussing The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna.
All right.
We're back.
We are back.
I just realized you're sitting in my seat.
I am.
Wow, that took me this whole time. Listener, you'll have to tune in for the Friday edition so you can see the video, but that's where I sit. How does the seat feel?
It's great.
Yeah,
it's a great seat.
It's a great one.
I didn't want to move my seat or the mic.
That is absolutely 100% fair.
So this is where I am.
It's a good looking place to be.
It is.
So we're here to talk about The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and the only reason why I can have that roll off the tongue is because it's right there in front of me. So I will just be calling it Secret Irregular Witches, but I love this book.
I do too. This is the second time I've listened to it. I listened to it for fun after you recommended it.
Yeah.
And then we decided, you know what? We're going to extend book club.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to include this.
Yeah. It's a thing we never told anyone we're doing.
No, we haven't.
We'll get to it. People will figure it out once this comes out. Yeah, I can't remember. I think I must have been in England when someone recommended it to me. I was at one of the bookshops because I was like, the two things that I was going through the UK was like afternoon teas and bookshops. Like it was nobody's business. And it was one of those recommendations and it sounded interesting. I listened to it and it is one of those books that just makes my heart warm and fuzzy and I feel so freaking good every time I've read it.
I feel the same. There is so much to love about each of the characters. They're all distinct. They're all a little quirky.
Yeah.
And there's so much to love about each of their journeys as well. So highly recommend. It is not very spicy.
And that's going to be something that we discuss, definitely. And it's like one of the books that I think out of all the books that we've read, this is the one that has the most heart to me.
Okay. I'm trying to think of all the books we've read this summer. I would agree.
Yeah. Not that the other ones don't have heart, but this one's it's just so heart.
It just has so much heart.
It just has so much heart. And you can tell it has a lot of heart because we put the ask out to listeners of like, hey, what are the things that you like and don't like? Way more likes than don't likes. And even some of the don't likes are just like not even real don't likes.
Oh, okay. I haven't even looked at them yet.
Yeah. So before I start reading off what people say, do you remember, Amy, your initial first blush take of the book the first time and the second time reading this?
I think for me, what really stood out the most was how much I liked the personality not only of the protagonist, but how much it bled through the narration as
Mm,
well.
mhm.
And obviously, one of the biggest themes throughout this entire book is family and what does family mean and what does belonging mean.
Yeah.
And I thought that the different ways that that was represented throughout the novel was done really well as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Yeah, you really do get a lot of representation of chosen family. I
Mhm.
guess we'll get into the chosen family of it all, but you have so many examples of what chosen family could mean. Like, you
Mhm.
have Ian and Ken, his partner,
Ken.
Ken,
Yeah.
and you also have, that's like, when you find a partner and you commit to them, you have you add Jamie and Lucy into it, and then you have
Mhm.
also the 3 girls. I will not even try to start to remember their names, so let's just make that clear.
The easiest one for you to remember is Rosetta,
Rosetta,
like the Rosetta Stone.
Terracotta,
Terracotta,
and
like the terracotta
then
soldiers.
Armageddon.
No. Altamira, which
Altamira,
I don't I actually don't know what archaeological find that refers
like
to, but
Armageddon. No, ultimatum. Altamira,
I don't
Rosemary,
Rosetta.
Rosetta, and Terracotta.
Ter
Shit,
ter
terracotta.
terra
Okay, the oldest is Rose.
Rosetta,
The
yeah.
middle one is Tara, and then
Terracotta.
the youngest is Al.
Okay, I think those are great nicknames, even though they don't use them throughout the book.
No, no, but that's what they're getting because, by
That's what you can
golly, I can only do so much.
remember.
I can only do so much. But okay, so one thing that you kind of popped up in my mind as you're talking was that with chosen family, they really referenced the girls as sisters, and it
Mhm.
was never ever a conversation of she's not my sister. It
Yeah,
was always the girls. Go to your sister. Here's your sister.
yeah. I think I love that because this is one of the first books that we really see the representation of what it means to be adopted
Yeah.
and how that experience can be different depending on the person who adopts you
Mhm.
and what their motivations are. So I really, really appreciated that as someone who has two adopted
Yep.
sisters. I think for them, I could imagine them reading this and being heartened or comforted to
Mhm.
see representation of what it means
Yeah.
to be to not look like your family, but for them to be your family.
Yeah, and, like, how fiercely they're loved,
Mhm.
and just how much, like, everyone there, Lucy, Ken, Ian, are all, like, those are Jamie's girls,
Mhm.
and, they all love them, they all help raise them and everything, but, like, those are his kids,
Mhm.
and which, like, dear God, like, don't make me melt even more, like, and I'm on my period reading this, like, it was I was like, "Oh my god, Jamie, you're amazing." And, I mean, there's nothing more than, like, a grumpy guy who's a sucker for kids.
Mhm. Especially little girls.
That sounds creepy.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't mean it in that way. I realized after I said it, I was like, "Wait, that sounded bad."
Yeah. But yes, but also you're not wrong, like a girl dad.
I was just about to say, Jamie is a girl dad.
Jamie's a girl dad, and he's such a sucker, and, even in his, like, most irritated moments with them, he still, is able to kinda, like, pull it together and stuff, and he was only 26 when he, like, started when, Rose came on, and he had her and helped, like, raise her and stuff, but yeah, like, then you also have other representation of chosen family, and maybe this isn't chosen family, we'll call it, like, thrusted upon family, and that's Primrose and Mika.
Yeah, and that's representation of adoption that isn't necessarily for the purpose of family, right?
Mhm.
It's in some ways Primrose has white savior complex.
I think more
And
than some ways, in a lot of ways, same with her
in a lot
sister.
of Right, Lillian as well.
Mhm.
And Mika is not does not benefit the way that the younger girls do from having a support system,
Yeah.
right? She
Mhm.
really had to learn to be independent, take care of herself,
Mhm.
and she's suffered trauma because of that
Yeah.
in a way that she didn't necessarily have to. So, I thought that was explored really well as well.
I mean, that their relationship, Primrose and Mika, was a really good example of relationships with parental figures that's, like, with a lot of tension in it, because
Mhm.
you can see where Mika points out saying, "Hey, there were good memories in that house." When she goes back home to York and goes back to the house that she was raised in, like, there are good moments where,
Mhm.
like, she drew on the brick, and Primrose was like, "Well, why are we gonna cover art? Let's paint the whole
Yeah.
thing." And so Mika can look at it and say like, "Oh, there were good moments, and that wasn't enough." And those 2 things can be true.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I feel like this reflects on something we said about which book did we just talk about? Angel's Blood?
Angels.
Was it? I don't know. I feel like I said recently something about how you can have parental figures who love you,
Mhm.
who want the best for you, but don't do enough for you.
Yeah.
And that's what we see with Primrose.
Yep.
She provided a home, she provided safety, she provided education,
Mhm.
but that wasn't enough for Mika. Mika also
Yeah.
needed someone who was there for her, and
Yeah.
Primrose was not.
I mean, there for her, remember her. Like, just
Right.
the the amount of issues that poor Mika has, but, issues that she's super aware of too. But I'm like, maybe this is, like, too early to get into it, but you mentioned the white savior of it all, so maybe we just kinda, like, jump into that.
Push forward.
Push forward, white savior, English colonialism, like, there's a
Mhm.
lot of things coming from there, and the fact that, her twin goes around collecting kids from around the world to bring them back and to white savior them, and the same way that Primrose brought back Mika from
Mhm.
India when she was a little
Mhm.
tiny baby, that, removing her from other witches and that could have raised her, and Primrose did give reasons as to why that might not have been the best option, but
Mhm.
it is such a commentary without providing commentary. I mean, maybe there is, and I just didn't pay attention to it, but, like, it's not, like, the defining thing of the theme of the book, but there's a lot
Right.
of commentary of, like, colonialism within this too.
Right. I mean, it makes me think about so I don't know how common that is for English people or children of Indian descent who may have been adopted and then brought to England. I don't know if that's a common practice. The way that I do know it's a common practice for Americans to go to China, adopt
Mm,
a kid, bring them back, right?
yeah, yeah,
Or some other Asian country.
yeah,
I would say my family is the same. The difference is we actually lived in China and we kept right. And
yeah,
the children grew up in China,
mhm.
whereas there are plenty of families I've run into over the years who lived in the States
But
and worked
adopted
with us.
kids from China, like, it was
Yeah.
I think you're right, I definitely feel like there was a time in the '90s and post-90s, also known as the 2000s, that it felt like everyone who was adopting was always like, they're adopting a child from China, and I don't know if that's, like, laws that was going on or another, I hate to say it, but, like, white fad, like, I hope that's not the case, um, but, sometimes, like, even now when I see things, like, on TikTok and stuff, and I hear the way that people talk about, like, wanting to adopt, and they just kinda say, like, "All I want to adopt is a little Chinese baby," and I'm like, "Okay, but, like, are what's the motivation here? What's the goal that you're aiming for here?"
Right. We all there are plenty of children in the foster care and adoption system here in the United
And
States
throughout the world.
and throughout the world, but I'm just thinking, like, if you're local in the United States, why are
Yeah.
I
And you and I don't know anything about the laws. Like, we are coming into this real ignorant
Oh,
when
yeah,
it
yeah,
comes
yeah.
to laws, like, maybe it is, like, um,
Cheaper.
cheaper. I didn't wanna say cheaper, but it is true, like, it is a factor.
It is a
Yeah,
factor.
like, it's maybe it is cheaper to and the laws are easier to go through China. Like, maybe that's a thing, but I don't know.
I I will also say I know from my personal experience, at least at the time of my sister's adoption,
Mhm.
it the one child policy was still in effect, and families often abandoned their daughters
Mhm.
and left them at orphanages, and at the time, I don't know if this is true anymore, but culturally, you don't adopt from the orphanage. And
Who did you adopt from?
no, no, no. I'm just sorry. Let me rephrase. I don't know if this is still true, but at the time, the Chinese population does not adopt
Mm.
from Chinese orphanages. So the orphanages are overflowing
Yeah.
and no one's adopting.
Yeah.
In my hometown, especially in China, it was the I don't know how to say this in a PC way. This is what I grew up with. It was essentially an orphanage for children with disabilities or
Mm.
who
Yeah.
were born. I mean, but again, the problem is my sisters were both in these kinds of orphanages
Yeah.
where they're not disabled in any way.
Yeah.
I know kids who were born with a sixth toe and they were put in the orphanage.
It was, the parameters were real loosey goosey.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that I mean, again, not another loosey goosey, not the best way of putting it, but the parameters of what is meant to be an orphanage or an orphanage designated for children who might need extra assistance was not
Yeah.
necessarily the case.
Yeah, I'm curious if and so I say all of this because I don't know if there was a similar thing going on in England
Mm, mhm,
with Indian children.
mhm.
I could see that being the case. I am curious if the author Sangu is adopted herself. Do we know?
Oh, I don't know. Do you wanna do a quick Google?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a quick Google.
While you Google. In my time in England, I'm not going to say that I met every single person out there, obviously. I was only there for 2 years living there for 2 years as a student. I I didn't feel like the adoption culture was as much as the United States, but then again, like, I don't think, like, more yeah, maybe that's just something that's not talked about as much. I feel like in the United States, like, adoption is such a popularized thing. Like, again, in the 90s and early 2000s, there was, like, a TLC
Mhm.
TV show that was dedicated to adoption, an adoption story, and I don't wanna call it a fad, but it was very popular, and there'd be jokes of, like, horrible jokes, like, in the schoolyard, kids saying, like, "Oh, you're gonna find out you're adopted," and there were, like, plot and storylines and books and media about adoption, and I can't, off the top of my head, say that that's the same thing in the UK, but again, I'm not gonna pretend like I've consumed all the media in the UK.
Yeah, and that's where because the author is from the UK and I'm just reading quickly her bio. It looks like she was born and raised in Bangalore,
Mhm.
but I don't know that for sure that she was adopted. But she has much, much different cultural experiences
Yeah.
than we do.
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful with the assumptions we
Oh,
make.
yeah, and I do know that there's in England and in London in particular, there's a lot of families who do come from India and Pakistan, and
Hmm.
that's the area I lived. I love that. I love that neighborhood. East End, London, represent.
I just want to do one more quick
Yeah.
search. Her name, Ma- it's actually Mandana. Oh, well, I mean, she's British. So she says, I pronounce Mandana so that it rhymes with bandana.
God, just like she knows me.
But how do the British say bandana?
Bandana.
Ba-
No. Bandana. No, no, I sound like a minion. Banana.
Okay. Mandana. Mandana.
Mandana. And British aren't as hard on the A's like we are.
Right,
We like
right.
to bitch slap those A's.
I know. That's why I'm like really self conscious
Yeah.
about the way I'm saying this. Well, regardless of her background.
Regardless of her background, you know what this reminds me of is when Amy and I were in college, there was like we took a literature class and it was English literature in the 60s. And we learned that there was a lot of really interesting and important, yes.
Let's clarify, British literature.
Thank you. British literature in the 60s. And it was a really important time for British literature because laws had opened up around that time where Britain was like, "Oh, yes, if you're one of our colonies and you live in one of our colonies, you can totally come over here." And
Mm,
they got an influx of people moving to the UK. The thing is, it wasn't the white people they were hoping for. And then all of a sudden you have, racist British people. They're like, wait, what? This is not what we were hoping for Canada. We were hoping for other things. And
right.
you now have like a very white island nation that gets an influx of people of
Color.
color and throughout the world, from all over the world. And I think that's really important because what happened then in that influx changed a lot of things in the way that people had to approach and think about community because
Yeah.
it is mostly still condensed to London. However, people move throughout the UK, and I think that when you get books like these where it's not saying that, hey, this is what happened in the 60s and this is
Right.
a direct translation to that, but what it does highlight are some of the prejudices that are still very much there in the UK today. And we see that
Mm-hmm.
with Edward, the lawyer or the solicitor.
Oh, yeah. Which is a great point. We should all clarify these British things that we don't understand.
The solicitor? Yeah.
Yeah, the solicitor. It took me forever to like really understand. This is just a lawyer. It is not someone who's just knocking on the door for the sake of knocking on the door.
Oh my god, the amount of guys that I, like, passed up on dates for 2
Beca-
reasons. I was like, they're a solicitor and a banker. I don't wanna say I passed up on dates, but I was like, "You were really cocky of yourself for just." I mean, nothing wrong with being a bank teller, but, like, you're coming in with a big ego here, and for being a solicitor knocking on doors.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
lot of ego here. No, those were stockbrokers and lawyers.
So, I mean, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah. And now a quick ad break. If there's one thing that I struggle with, it is my own thin upper lip and how dry my lips are.
I can't speak to the thin upper lip, but I can speak to the dry lips. And I feel like that tends to be a universal thing.
That is like some full lip privilege if I ever heard anything.
It is full lip privilege. But, sometimes the weather works against us. And if you're not hydrating properly, you're going to have dry lips.
I've also seen your luscious full lips with lipstick, and it is the most amazing thing ever. Like, your lips is like a canvas for City Lips. Really.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel like City Lips visibly smooths the texture of my lips and it hydrates them for a moisturized feeling all day.
And maybe you'll be like me and use it before bedtime because you get dry lips when you wake up. I have been doing this before bed.
Oh,
Just kind of.
that's actually brilliant.
Right? It helps so much with the hydration of it.
And you know what? Your lips appreciate it because City Lips contains both hyaluronic acid and peptides to give you that really full and hydrated feeling.
The great news is we're not gatekeeping this, and we have 15% off for our listeners.
So if you want visibly full and hydrated lips, with City Lips, shop citybeauty.com and get 15% off site-wide with the code BookTok. That is BookTalk.
And they get 60 days to return it, otherwise money back guarantee.
I mean, with the 60-day money back guarantee
And the 15% off.
and the 15% off, don't hesitate. Try all the shades, find your perfect match. Shop City Lips at citybeauty.com.
I will be using our own code to get
buy
more.
more?
Yeah.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
There's still a lot of prejudice in the UK, and it's still, quote unquote polite prejudice, even though it's not polite. It's just very it's different than like American racism, which is what we think of today. When I think racism, I think about America because that's where I live. But being in the UK, consuming the media and knowing what does happen, and having friends who are still there, who are women of color,
right,
and
right.
those are really important things where it's like a lot of this is still happening today. And you have this book, and Sangu does such a good job of showing these biases throughout life in everyday, through in her and Mika's like everyday life, or you don't see it every single day, but you do see moments of it, and that is it was such a great way of weaving that theme into her book.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel heavy-handed.
Yeah.
It feels very intentional.
Oh yeah.
But it's doesn't have heavy overtones, because to me, at least, I feel very strongly that the book wants to focus on the positivity of finding the place you belong, rather than the hurts of being a person of color in that society.
Yeah, and I do want to go through, because I think it is like really important just how wonderfully diverse these characters are. So I'm going to go through, we have Mika, who's Indian, and then Jamie, Northern Irish. So, we white checked. We also have Lucy, who is white, Ian, who is white but is gay and married to Ken, who is Japanese. And then you have the three girls. I don't know. I know one of the girls is Korean, the other one is from Pakistan, and then one of them, I don't know where they're from, but they're black. I know Rose is black.
Yeah, Rosetta's black. I believe she's from somewhere in Africa.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, though.
I can't remember where. And I know, I
think it's Terracotta, who's Pakistani.
Yeah. And
Altamira, I believe, is the one who's
from Korea.
Yeah, Asian or Korean.
Yeah. And it's just such a whenever I see representation in a book, I just get excited about it. And I think about, I get very frustrated when it comes to like other authors or movies or anything that people just struggle with like representation. And it's like, here's a cast of characters who are so diverse in so many different ways. Even Lucy is a woman from a domestic violence situation. Even Jamie was a victim of abuse from his family. There's so many ways of handling things, and it's just a reminder of like, hey, you can have diversity. It's not hard at all,
Right.
and it just adds
Right.
richness to the book.
Yeah, and we see that diversity cascade not only from our core cast of characters, but also to the secondary characters.
Mhm.
Think of Hannah. Is it Hannah Kim, the witch who
The
is
who's engaged, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
who's lesbian, who's
Mhm,
engaged. I
mhm.
think they're both Korean,
Yeah.
and it's just lovely because
Yeah.
it reflects our reality, at least, for you and me,
Yeah.
Jack. I think it also depends on which part of the country you live in or your country you live in.
It is an interesting thing because, like, we do live in LA, and we are very fortunate to have such a diverse group of friends and people, like, who have become chosen family in many ways,
We both have also lived
and we
internationally.
both yeah, yeah, and we've lived internationally, and we do have and it also like, you and I are both half white. I'm half Chilean, you're half Chinese, so, our family are also pretty diverse too. It's kind of I grew up in a Latin family.
Yeah.
And some white
Yeah.
people in there too. Like, it's like, I grew up on my with, like, primarily my mom's side of the family, who's all
Yeah.
Latin. So, it's definitely, like, you and I have a we're not, like, people I was about to, like, drop some random state, and I knew I was gonna offend some state, but we're not in, like,
Yeah.
a place that you and I did not grow up in areas that were predominantly white, that's for sure.
Correct. That is absolutely
And it makes
correct.
me I'm happy with it. I don't know, like, I'm just like, it was
Well, and I think what we're trying to say is that, and we've talked about this before when we've talked about A Court of Thorns and
Mhm.
Roses and other books, you can't ignore the fact that your world is very colorful, and why are we not portraying that
Yeah.
in the worlds that we make up as authors?
And I just think about, like, it doesn't take much to make it mean a lot.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite moments is at the very end of the book when Mika notes that Rosetta is looking at the other witch
Mhm.
who's also black, and she's also a
Mhm.
witch, and she said that it's described as like Rosetta's staring at her like her world has shifted, and she could
Mhm.
tell that that was going to be a really meaningful moment for that 10-year-old.
Yeah.
One scene, a few sentences, and
Yeah.
immediately you so much is done, and I think that's, like, why Sangu is so good at what she does. I mean, we're gonna get into writing style in a little bit, and that's, like, my brain hurts of just how fantastic she is, but, like, one of the things that makes her so good is that she can have these moments, and because she's such a talented author, she doesn't have to write a lot to make it mean so, so much, and
Mhm.
that's why I think that the way that she talks about race, she talks about diversity and sexuality and everything is perfect because, like, she doesn't
It
have to
doesn't Yeah, it doesn't make a big deal out of the fact that
because it's life. Like, that's the thing.
right.
Yeah, like, it's just life, it just is, and it's just being a super talented author.
Right. What I love, let's go ahead and jump into the writing style because
God.
I love how, for me, if I had to describe the narrative, it is a very personalized narrative to
Mhm.
the protagonist while also being very observant and being able to touch lightly upon the things
Yeah.
that she observes without disturbing them. So
Oh,
like there was
great
without
description. Oh my
thanks.
god. Continue, Amy.
So, like the Rosetta moment, when we're getting this from Mika's point of view, the narration observes the importance of that moment without making it about Mika or Mika interfering with that moment or becoming part of that moment. It's just an observation of like, this is magical. And you can feel how Mika feels about it by her acknowledging it
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then feeling empowered enough to continue to move on instead of making it about her.
And that is the beauty of it. Mika does not make it about her.
Hmm.
She makes it about them in the moment, and that's things that we can all learn as people.
Yeah, I think what I loved so much about the narration is just how much Mika loves other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this book so heartwarming is just that it's hard to find a flaw with Mika. Not that she's perfect,
Mhm.
but because of who she is as a character, you want her to succeed
Yeah.
and you want to be with her as a narrator.
It's also a female character that I am 100% behind and supporting.
Yeah.
There is no pick-me-esque about her. Like, she's very confident.
Mhm.
I think that has to do a lot with the fact that she's 31 as a character.
Yeah. Yep.
And,
Yeah.
her brain's been developed, she's lived, she's aware of her issues, she can articulate
Mhm.
her issues, she can say when she's like, okay, I might have reacted too quickly, but like,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean just because you take one step back doesn't mean that you can like, you have to destroy the whole thing. Like, Mika is one of my favorite heroines. And going back to the writing style before we go into, the full descent that Mika deserves, uh,
Mhm.
I felt like Sangu's writing was very much a modern Jane Austen, and you can
Mm.
tell that there was a lot of Austen influence just in the way that things are described, in the way that things that are chosen to be mentioned or not mentioned, sliding in and out of different perspectives was really great. I
Mhm.
thought that it
Mhm.
was so well done and purposefully done because you have, it's third person. Sometimes it's a little bit more omniscient. Sometimes it's focused on one other person. Sometimes it's just getting Jamie's flexing his hand.
Mhm.
There was a flexing of a hand, and that was like a very important moment for me. And, it was very Austen-esque, and it was also very British. The way that things are phrased
Mhm.
and worded, it's just like there's just a cleverness there in the
Mhm.
way that like people, I'm not saying every single British person, but the way that things are thought and said and phrased, there's a certain type of like Britishness that made me cry when I moved to the England and I was like, I'm not smart like them. And they just sound so much smarter, but it's just the sentence structure. And I think
Yeah.
that Sangu does a really good job with her sentence structures and the way that she describes things.
I I agree. I mean, you articulated it better than me. It is very British, and I find it very comforting
Hmm.
in its Britishness because I love Jane Austen, because I read the Bronte sisters
Yeah.
growing up. This is for both of us. This is where we like to be,
Yep.
and but that might not be for everybody. Not everybody likes Jane Austen. My partner does not like Jane Austen.
Wait, what?
She doesn't like reading Jane Austen.
I
She reads a lot. She does not like reading Jane Austen.
You tell me this now? That's
Sorry. You can't get rid of
I
her.
know, I'm just, it's fine. We have a lifetime to get her to change her mind. So, it
She likes the like
the
movie
movies, we'll
adaptations.
circle back. But it's yeah, no, I mean, it is very and I think that it was done on purpose though, because of how much Austen
Right.
is mentioned in this book.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like a love letter.
Yeah, I forgot how much Austen is mentioned in this book.
Yeah, yeah, I think in many ways it was kind of like a love letter to Austen, where
Mhm.
it was like rather than saying, "Hey, I'm going to redo one of your books. I'm going to make
Yeah.
Emma in this version," which is not an insult because I want every single version of Pride and Prejudice told over into me and Emma. It felt like a purposeful, like, hey, I have a story, I have this in mind, and I'm
Mhm.
going to reflect the authors that have come before me in ways that I feel like it did feel very purposeful
Mhm.
and yet very much her own. Like it did if
Yeah.
it wasn't like her trying to be Jane Austen at all.
Right, right, right. She was still very Sangu was still very much herself as an author
Mhm.
while paying homage to Austen
Yeah.
in small ways.
And yeah, like a hand flexing, man. That's the way that even the way Mika talks about it, like I love forearms. I'm like, girl, you and
I
me
understand.
both. So I want to talk a little bit more about the narration style, particularly when it comes to the information that is given to us in the first chapter, in the first sequence. It is an info dump, like we've talked
Mhm.
about, but damn it, do I think it was done well. Like, I thought it was so masterfully done. And I think it's because of how clever the information is given to us.
Yeah, I agree, and I haven't been able to figure out why I like it so much more than other books we've read.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, why don't you take a stab at it?
Yeah, I think that what it reminds me of is a little bit of Bride when we read Bride and we
Mhm.
read Misery. Wow, I can't believe I remember that. And we read Misery's perspective and it was like
Mhm.
granted it was first person and it was like all coming from her and we got a lot of info dump, but it was told in such personality that we were kind of like okay with it in a way.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
everything was revealed at once, obviously, but like we got a lot of information. Like, here's the world, here's what's going on. I think when the personality is done so well, also, I
Yeah.
think third person helps a little bit of that removed aspect from it, where
Yeah.
it's not, you don't have the problem of, hi, my name's Steve, and here's what I'm here to tell you about my world. My life is a little crazy. You don't have that happening. You have like a, it really slides in and out of like focus third person to a little bit more
Yeah.
omniscient. And the ease of that is chef's kiss seamless. Like, I want to
Mhm.
study how she does this.
Mhm.
And I think because when you have Mika coming in and you have that personality of that third person more focused, and you have that Mika personality, I want to know more about this world because, hearing all the different versions of what you wanted to call your society is
Mhm.
hilarious. I want to know more
Yeah.
about it because you're telling me about all these other funny things that.
Right. And we learn so much about Mika in the process. We
Yep.
learn about Primrose in the process,
Mhm.
right? It's not just an information. I think what it is it's not just
Yeah.
information. It's information to the like fourth power or something
Yeah.
because you're it's not one source of let me compare it to the parapet
Yep.
in Fourth Wing,
Yep.
right? Okay, we learn about Violet when she gets nervous, and we learn about the world,
Mhm.
and that's about it. But in this, with the way Sangu writes this, we learn about Mika's personality. We learn about Primrose's personality.
Yep.
We learn about the tension between the two. We learn about witches in this world.
Yep.
Like, and it just keeps going. We just keep learning.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it good because it's not like one channel of information. It's multiple things streaming in.
Absolutely. I want to latch on to one of the things that you said, and it's like we don't even know that we're getting info dumped on. Like, it's
Mhm.
such a trick, like a trick of mirrors, where it's like, here's the world you're learning about. Psych, you're actually learning about the other dynamics over here when all these other
Mhm.
characters and Primrose and Mika, and you're getting so much other information that it's
Mhm.
like you're fooling me, Sango. You're telling me you're making me think that I know something. In actuality, you're making me know two things.
Yeah. Well, I think for the point for me is that she's actually making us know more than two
Yeah, yeah, a
things,
million things.
right?
It's
So, yeah, she does it very, very well.
because I
And very
walk away. I walk away from it knowing Mika, knowing the world, and knowing everything I need to
right.
know.
And retaining it.
Yeah.
I think the thing with a lot of info dump in other books is it's impossible to retain all this information that
Yeah.
you've just given me.
Yeah. It's bite-sized enough, and there's enough things that we don't
Mhm.
like, do we know how magic works at this point? No. But
No.
I'm also not trying to infer it either, because that's another
Right.
thing when we've talked about with this book club time and time again, that when you don't give information right away, it does leave room for people to make the wrong guesses.
Mhm.
I haven't I didn't have that happen at all with this book.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. So one of our listeners, what they liked about this, and this is from Lou, it was honest, sometimes a little sad, but always optimistic. And I think that is an excellent way
Mm,
to not only describe the spirit of the book, but the narrative as well.
yeah.
Like it doesn't hold back, but it doesn't do anything to be mean.
Yeah.
And there's always hope.
I love that.
Regr-
It's
yeah.
honest, sometimes a little sad, but ultimately hopeful.
Yeah.
And that's how I want life to be, like,
Right.
I think that one of those things that life is, once you realize life isn't always going to be easy. Life isn't always going to
Mhm.
be fun and things, and there are going to be hard times. If you're able to not look at it through that lens, but look at it as life is about honesty, sometimes sad,
Mhm.
but ultimately hopeful, that makes life so much like more bearable.
Yeah.
And it's such a good job. Who wrote that? Good
It was Lou.
gosh, Lou, that was such a good description, because now I'm like, that just feels like so. perfect of a description for this book, and makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, because that's what this book does too. And even the sad parts are done without the hopelessness. Like, you have a lot of sad backstories between Lucy and Jamie and Ian and Ken. Like, I mean, not even including Mika and everything, but like all the other characters. Like, there isn't a character that hasn't had pain at one point or another.
Right. But they get to lead happy lives because they put in the work
And hopeful.
and it's not always easy, but they have each other, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. And they're a group of people who know to let people in and not shut them out.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you have to force yourself to be in the same room necessarily every single day. Because, like, even throughout, you have these moments where Sangu kind of highlights times where they're all together as a family, or they're each kind of doing their own thing, or they're still living independent lives but all within each other at the same time. And it is very, that's part of the whole, like, honest, sad, and hopeful thing. Oh my god, I love this book. I want it to be made into a movie. I want it to be, I want every version of this. I want Sangu to like us.
I could see this being like a 6-episode miniseries
of us doing no TV show.
No.
Okay.
TV show.
I was like, we're gonna analyze it, because I'm like, okay. It's just so good. Yeah, no, it could easily be a 6-part miniseries, and I want that to happen. Then I want to watch it on like the cozy Sundays, and I just want to like that's what I want. I want this book in a very like easier to consume. Reading's great, but I want to binge it in a go. I feel cozy and warm.
And while you're consuming high tea.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
I want tea and little sandwiches, and I want to consume it while horizontal. That's what I want for me. Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. If you would like to submit your take on any of the books we plan to discuss later this summer, please be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we ask for listener submissions.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle BookTalkForBookTalk. Bye! Okay, do we have the script?
I was just about to pull it up.
My glasses are on the other side of the room, and I'm not gonna get up and get them. Sit my ass right here.
All right. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.